Hello and welcome back to I Completed 80s Music with me, the 80s Mixtaper, your guide through the biggest, brightest and most bonkers songs of the best decade in pop. For the uninitiated, back in 2016 I made a bet with myself to try and listen to every single UK charting entry in the top 75 from the 31st of December 1979 to the 31st of December 1989. After a slowish start, reaching about 1984 by 2019, the COVID lockdown really sped things up, and by about the middle of 2021, I'd done it. Thousands of singles, a splash of Marillion, All About Eve, and some Madonna thrown in for good measure, I'd completed the mission. And then by 2024, I decided to retell that magnificent musical adventure, one song at a time, through this podcast. We have some exciting news this week. I met up with the phenomenal music historian and writer Justin Lewis a few weeks ago for a chat, and we talked about all things 80s music and about his brilliant new book, Into the 80s, The Ultimate Decade in Music History, which is out on October the 2nd. It was a wide-ranging catch-up where we talked about his own experiences of the 80s, the importance of DJs like Janice Long and Annie Nightingale to the picture, through to his excellent new book, taking you through 80s music a day at a time. I've read it, it's one you can't put down. So you get a bit of a bumper week this week. You'll get this pod as normal today, and then shortly before the 2nd, I'll upload the interview for you all to enjoy as well. As you know, we also love your memories, corrections and recollections on this show, and this week we had an outpouring of love for Spandau Ballet's The Freeze over on TikTok. Kath Grace, 33, says, when I first saw them, I was mesmerised by their whole look and their music. CCBOTP says, Tony Hadley channeling a bit of a young Jeremy Irons here. Would recommend their documentary Soul Boys of the Western World. And Simple Man 1917 says, great song, and they look the part as well. Yep, even my wife watched the Freeze video and said she wouldn't kick Tony Hadley out of bed. He was a really dapper looking fellow, I've got to admit, and big on sartorial elan, if it's fair to say. Even 44 years later, he's one of the early 80s stars who still looks handsome today rather than a bag of spanners like the rest of us. If you'd like to message the show, you can find me on the socials as the 80s Mixtaper, or if you're old school and would like to email in, the address is completed80s, that's 80s, at AOL.com. So, what do we have for you today? Well, we're into playlist 28, and the big debuts keep on coming. The first half of the playlist in today's episode features no less than 4 introductions, as we meet Modern Romance, the Pointer Sisters, Dollar, and Simple Minds. We also get more Human League, Stevie Nicks and Genesis. As always, due to copyright laws, we can't play the songs in the pod, but if you go to the episode description, you'll find playlists for Spotify and Apple Music, plus a full track listing, so you can play along at home or if you're out for a walk or jogging or whatever you do, tabletop armies to 80s music, I don't know. Anyway, let's get back to the music. Alright, let's start today in playlist 28 with the Human League's 1981 single, Love Action, I Believe in Love. The synth pop banger that's about to hit your ears with its pulsing Roland drums and Phil Oakey's deadpan croon. Picture it, July the 27th, 1981, Virgin Records drops this red label, dance floor ready, pairing Love Action with Hard Times. We last met the League with The Sound of the Crowd, their number 12 UK hit from April this year, a track that finally cracked the top 40 after years of experimental clatter and financial strain with Virgin. Now with Love Action, they're leaning harder into pop's sweet spot, and it's a gear shift that'll propel them towards Dare's world-conquering orbit. So cue up those opening synth stabs, and let's unpack how this song became their first top 3 smash. Press play now. The band was still a fragile 5-piece post-Crowd. Oakey, asymmetrical haircut and red lipstick in full effect, leading the charge. Adrian Wright on visuals and keys, conjuring slides for the live show. Susan Ann Sully and Joanne Catherall, the teenage backing vocalists plucked from a Sheffield club, still juggling tour dates with school leaver vibes, and Ian Burden, the bassist and synth player who'd joined mid-1980 after founders Martin Ware and Ian Craig Marsh split to form Heaven 17. Manager Bob Last, sensing the need for a steadier hand, brought in Joe Callis, former Rosillo's guitarist, another Sheffield native, for keys and guitar in April '81, right as the sound of the crowd was climbing. Callis's pop chops were a game changer, and by spring, the now six-piece league was holed up at Genetic Studios in Reading with producer Martin Rushent. Rushent, who'd shaped the sound of the crowd into a tight machine, was now remoulding the band's sound with a slicker edge. Sessions ran through spring '81 with Oakey, Burden and Callis tinkering on Roland System 100 and 700 synths, Korgs and the beastly EMS Synthy. Love Action, co-written by Oakey and Burden, emerged as a standout, its lyrics pulling from Oakey's romantic misfires. I've been a husband and a lover too. I've laid alone and cried at night over what love made me do, he sings. Oakey later admitted in a 1982 interview it's semi-autobiographical. I nicked a bit from Iggy Pop's Turn Blue, that bridge, but this is Phil talking. I want to tell you what I found to be true. Name drops himself and the old man he believes in. It's Lou Reed, he clarified in the same chat. No one ever asked me about who the old man is. The single, part of the band's Red Dance series, hit shops with Hard Times on the Flip, all moody bass and gated snares. The 12-inch version paired Hard Times and Love Action for a 10-minute A-side with an 11-minute instrumental remix on the B-side that later fueled 1982's Love and Dancing. Russian and engineer David M. Allen leaned on pitch-to-voltage converters for those warped synth leads, that iconic meow stutter tying the track. No promo video yet, budget was tight, but the league mimed it on Top of the Pops twice, August the 6th at number 29 and August the 20th at number 9, with Callis debuting, the lineup locked in. Love Action entered at number 29 on August the 8th, 1981, soared to number 3 by late August, held the top 10 for 6 weeks and stayed 13 weeks total, ranking as the UK's 34th best-selling single of the year. In the US, the double A-side hit number 37 on the Billboard Dance Chart in '81, later 57 in '82. John Peel gave it an early spin on Radio 1, July the 23rd, calling it a chart-bound sound. Record Mirror dubbed it the undisputed single of the week. Oakey, briefly filling the lyrics, later shrugged it off in an article in 2005. I've never been a Phil, I'm a formal sort of person, really. The lyrics cut deep, Oakey dissecting love's grind. When you're in love, you know you're in love. No matter what you try to do, you might as well resign yourself to what you're going through. The chorus hooks hard. I love your Love Action. Lust's just a distraction. No talking, just looking, watching your Love Action. The bridge turns inward. I believe what the old man says, though I know that there's no Lord above. I believe in me, I believe in you, and I know I believe in love. And yes, you might know that from a Utah Saints song in the 90s as well. Sully and Catherall, 18 and 19, echo the hooks, their raw voices grounding the sheen. A video came later, shot August the 11th, 1982, for the US push, directed by Steve Barron. Oakey's a graduate-style wedding crasher, Sully the bride, all awkward 16mm glances. By then, Dare was triple platinum, but Love Action was the spark. Number 3 proved they could scale pop's heights. Callis stayed through Hysteria, left in '86, Burden exited in '89. Oakey, Sully and Catherall still play it live 44 years later. In the sticky heat of a London summer in 1981, as the city pulsed with the building pressure cooker of unemployment and social tensions, a track sliced through the air like a burst of citrus. Everybody Salsa by Modern Romance. Released in July as a 7-inch single on WEA Records, produced by Jeff Dean, David James and Norman Miguel, the song entered the UK singles chart in July, climbed steadily and peaked at number 12, holding for 12 weeks total. It marked the band's first chart entry, a foothold in a year when the charts were ruled by the likes of Soft Cell and Adam and the Ants. Backed by a 12-inch version, but stretched to 7 minutes, blending disco mix flair with rap-inflected verses. The single captured a fleeting vogue for Latin-inflected pop, one that briefly turned the British clubs into makeshift carnivals. This is track 2. I gotta say before we get into it, this always seemed to be put on by somebody's mum at birthday parties. And it also must be said, I kind of think the mums have this sort of flirty relationship with the Latin inflected track because it seems so exotic. Anyway, I digress. To understand how modern romance got here, we trace the line back to the grey drizzle of the late 1970s East London. Jeff Dean, born December the 10th, 1954 in the city's working class sprawl, and David James, born November the 28th, 1954, had already logged years in the trenches of the punk scene. Not as snarling ideologues, but as sharp-tongued observers. In 1977, they formed the Leighton Buzzards with a handful of local players, including James's younger brother Robbie, who would later handle keyboards, along with Vernon Austin on guitar, Kevin Steptoe on drums, and later David Monk on bass, and Tony Gainsborough replacing Steptoe on drums. The Buzzards weren't out to smash the system, they parodied it. Their debut single, 19 and Mad, in 1978, was a scrappy punk cut released on a 7-inch EP, capturing their cheeky take on youth rebellion. It appeared on the compilation Business Unusual, 1978 Cherry Red, but didn't chart on its own. In 1979, signed to Chrysalis Records, they released Saturday Night Beneath the Plastic Palm Trees, which hit number 53 on the UK singles chart in March, their only chart entry. The song's wry nostalgia about seaside nights and cheap romances earned them a cult following and 4 BBC Radio 1 sessions with John Peel between 1978 and January 1980. But punk's fire burned hot and fast. By 1980, the Buzzards had fizzled. Internal rows, label disinterest, the whole lot. Dean and James, undeterred, pivoted. They kept the core, Robbie on keys plus guitarist Paul Gendler and drummer Tony Gainsborough. Under the new banner, Modern Romance, they signed to WEA through a company they incorporated as Business Art Productions, managed by a contact from the club circuit. The name nodded to their satirical bent, evoking glossy magazines and fleeting flings, but the sound started stark. Electronic pulses drawn from the cold wave experiments in London's club scene, where Dean had been a regular. Their self-titled debut single dropped in May 1980, a chilly synth track with Dean's voice slicing over robotic beats. It vanished without a trace. Tonight, released early 1981, fared no better. Its electro edges too angular for radio. The pair then opted to lessen the predominantly electronic sound in favour of a Latin American dance style, with emphasis on bass, percussion and brass. They dialed back the circuits, cranking up bass lines and percussion. Crucially, they brought in John Dupre on trumpet. Dupre, a session veteran who cut his teeth in theatre pits and later scored films like A Fish Called Wanda, added the brass muscle. His lines weren't polite fanfares, they were punchy layered stabs, trumpet over trombone swells, echoing the mambo horns of Perez Prado, but clipped for disco floors. Drummer Andy Kiriakou joined around this shift, though Gainsborough laid down the Everybody Salsa drum track before exiting. The lineup locked, Dean fronting, James on bass and co-writing duties, Robbie on keys, Gendler on guitar, Duprez on horns, and Kiriakou behind the kit. That horn sound became Modern Romance's fingerprint, a brassy yelp that cut through the early 80s din like a taxi horn in Piccadilly. In an era where brass evoked either ska revivals like Madness's Nutty Marches or yacht rock smoothness like Level 42's Fusion Grooves, Duprez's contribution landed somewhere slyer, cheeky, tropical bursts that mimicked Rio or the chatter of a Notting Hill carnival float. It tied into the band's ethos. Dean's lyrics often winked at cultural mashups, East End lads dreaming of Havana via Ilford High Street. The horns weren't mere ornament, they drove the rhythm, syncing with James's walking bass to create a propulsion that felt both imported and improvised, a sound that prefigured the global beats of later decades, but rooted in 80s eclecticism. Everybody Salsa bottled this sound. Dean's verses paint a vivid landscape. Now what's that crazy rhythm coming from the street? The sound of people moving to that Latin beat. Now this ain't Puerto Rico, this is London E18. Everybody welcome to my own dream. E18, that's Ilford, the Buzzards' old stomping ground, a post-war suburb of sari shops and pie and mash stalls. The chorus hook simple, everybody salsa. No grand manifesto, just an invitation. Verse 2 evokes a mobile carnival. Carnival is moving, the music in the air, everybody's grooving, dancing everywhere. The spirit, not location, is the essence of our being. Why not come and join us in our own dream? The third nods to the scene's flirtations. We'll now see the pretty ladies moving all around, looking super sexy, all around the town. Their smiles are so enticing. If you wonder what they mean, everyone's entitled to their own dream. The track arrived amid a salsa surge in London. The Notting Hill Carnival had drawn over 100,000 attendees the year prior, blending West Indian steel drums with South American brass, though crowds would swell to over 500,000 by the mid-1980s. Modern Romance gigged in similar circuits, Depress's trumpet weaving through the crowd's chatter. Radio play followed. BBC Radio 1 spun it alongside Kid Creole's Calypso Funk, and by August they'd taped their first Top of the Pop slot, Dean in a pink suit, arms flailing like a tipsy uncle at a wedding. Export versions hit Benelux, Germany, France, Italy, Mexico, and the US, where a rap remix, Can You Move, reached number 2 on Billboard's dance chart. In Venezuela, it presaged bigger things. Their debut LP, Adventures in Clubland, hit number 1 there later that year, earning gold for 50,000 units. For Dean and James, it was vindication after 3 years of near misses. The Buzzards' satire had been a lark, but Modern Romance sharpened it into something exportable. Escapism with a wink. Depress's horns, those sharp, insistent blasts, encapsulated the decade's push-pull. Post-punk grit meeting disco's gleam. London fog pierced by imagined sun. As the single faded from the charts in September, it left a template. 8 more top 40 UK hits would follow, from I Moosey, which hit number 10, to The Best Years of Our Life, which hit number 4, both of which we'll hear on this pod. But Everybody Salsa endures as the spark, a reminder that some rhythms travel light, landing wherever the beat calls. Next up, we introduce Trevor Horn to the picture. No longer the singer of Buggles, but now as a producer. And more importantly, we introduce Dollar, David Van Day and Teresa Bazar, who recorded a track that signalled their return to form after a year of setbacks. Handheld in black and white. Released that August via WEA Records. It ran for 3 minutes and 46 and featured a sleeve with the duo in portrait, all blonde feathered hair and twinkly eyes. Produced and co-written by Trevor Horn, it reached number 19 on the UK singles chart and spent 12 weeks there, debuting at number 66 on August the 16th. This is our track 3 today. The song's lyrics open with a verse of nocturnal imagery. On a ticket, Tokyo return, colour evening, palaces that burn. Some expression leading to the sky. They will wait until you learn to fly. Before shifting to the chorus, handheld in black and white, into the northern light, fly like a silver wing higher. Catching the southern wind, gliding and other things, fly like a silver wing higher. The single arrived amid the new romantic wave, its electronic pulse a departure from Dollar's earlier disco-inflected sound, and it charted in Europe, including number 22 in Spain. Dollar's beginnings lay in the mid-70s cabaret circuit, where Van Day and Bazar first crossed paths. Bazar, born Teresa Lorraine Bazar on May the 23rd, 1955 in Toronto to a Welsh mother and Maltese father, had moved to England as a child and developed her alto voice in school choirs. At around 17, she auditioned successfully for Guys and Dolls, a 6-piece vocal group assembled in late 1974 by producer David McKay after a jingle for Holston Lager went viral. Van Day, born David Paul Day on November the 28th, 1956 in Plaistow, East London, to a greengrocer father, joined around the same time, his voice suiting the ensemble's blend of soul covers and light pop. The group met during those auditions, both teenagers entering a schedule of seaside theatres, working men's clubs and BBC appearances. Guys and Dolls notched early UK hits, including There's a Whole Lot of Lovin' at number 2 in 1975, which sold over 1 million copies in Europe, and You Don't Have to Say You Love Me at number 5 that year. By 1977, as the group's cabaret formula lost steam amid punk's rise, internal tensions grew. Van Day grew restless with the dated material, and Bizarre, by then his romantic partner, aligned with him. They were asked to leave in July, publicly framing it as a shift to songwriting. The duo relocated to a North London flat, living frugally, Van Day as a postman, Bizarre waitressing, while demoing tracks on a borrowed 4-track, drawing from ABBA's melodies and disco rhythms. A meeting with producer Mitch Murray at an industry event secured a deal with Carrere Records, distributed by EMI. Their debut single, The Self-Written Shooting Star, entered the UK chart in January 1978 at number 14, holding for 8 weeks and earning a silver disc for 250,000 sales. It also reached number 74 on the US Billboard Hot 100. Who Were You With in the Moonlight followed in May 1979 at number 14 for 5 weeks. Then Love's Got a Hold on Me, a Bizarre-led ballad, hit number 4 in October for 12 weeks, their first top 10. The debut album, Shooting Stars, retitled Dollar in some markets, peaked at number 19 in late 1979. A gender-flipped cover of the Beatles' I Wanna Hold Your Hand closed the year at number 9 for 14 weeks. A switch to WEA in 1980 brought the Paris collection, self-produced in France with a harder rock edge, but it stalled at number 70 for 3 weeks. Its lead single, I Need Your Love, entering the Breakers list at number 92. To lift sales, Van Day and Bizarre announced their engagement on stage at the London Palladium, but it emerged as a publicity move. They had separated privately months earlier. Tours drew smaller crowds, and critics noted the mismatch between their vocals and the guitar-heavy tracks. Bizarre, determined to rebound, contacted Trevor Horn, an acquaintance from the Guys and Dolls support slots for early Buggles shows in 1976. Horn, born July 15th, 1949 in Sunderland, had fronted the Buggles, whose Video Killed the Radio Star topped the UK chart in October 1979. After a 7-month stint as Yes's singer on their 1980 album Drama, marked by fan backlash and vocal strain, he turned to production, aged 31, equipping his Wimbledon basement studio with a Fairlight CMI sampler, the first polyphonic digital synthesizer acquired around 1980 for £15,000. Bizarre's outreach surprised him, as he later recounted in a 2012 interview with the Stool Pigeon, quote, I said, why would I want to work with Dollar, a cheesy pop duo? And she said, do a Buggles record, have them front it. So I met them, and that's exactly what they wanted. Sessions at the studio yielded Handheld in Black and White, co-written with Bruce Woolley in an afternoon. Horn layered splashy drums, high drama piano synths from a Roland System 100, and sampled voices via Fairlight. Techniques blending Kraftwerk's electronics with Vince Hill's crooner style, creating a proto-synth pop sheen that masked the duo's offstage rift. The single's ascent from number 66 to number 19 by early October coincided with the Top of the Pops appearance on August the 20th, 1981, where Van Day and Bizarre mined in major and majorette jackets. It marked the start of Horn's $4 singles, all top 20 UK hits. Handheld hit number 19, Mirror Mirror Mon Amour hit number 4, Give Me Back My Heart number 4, and Videotech number 21. These anchored the Dollar album in October 1982, which reached number 18 and earned silver certification for 60,000 UK sales, though Horn handled only initial tracks, with Bizarre overseeing the rest. The run showcased Horn's innovations, like early vocal sampling on Give Me Back My Heart, and drew ABC's Martin Fry to him for Lexicon of Love, a 1982 number 1 album. As Fry noted in a 2012 BBC First Time With episode, Horn's Dollar work demonstrated a coldness and precision in electronic production. Reflecting in a 2024 iNews profile, Bizarre said of the period, even at Dollar's peak we were never drowning in money, but the Trevor Horn era was incredible. For a pair who met as teens in a fading variety act, Handheld in Black and White captured a moment of ascent, its monochrome title belying the vivid circuits beneath. Our next song introduces a powerhouse of the 80s and 90s, a band forged in Glasgow's gritty south side, where tenements cast long shadows and the music of escape pulsed through pubs. This is Love Song by Simple Minds, a taut, anthemic 1981 single that captured their early ambition. This is a band who will give us some of the 80s biggest tracks and will be forever linked to a Judd Nelson fist raise in the iconic film The Breakfast Club. But Love Song begins our journey. This is track 4. Simple Minds' roots trace back to 1977, when Jim Kerr, aged 18, and school friend Charlie Burchill, aged 17, joined the chaotic one-day punk outfit Johnny and the Self-Abusers. Answering an ad by scene figure Alan Cairnduff, who handed leadership to John Malarkey, they recorded Saints and Sinners for Chiswick Records in November 1977, with drummer Brian McGee, bassist Tony Donald, guitarist Duncan Barnwell, and Alan McNeil. A disastrous debut at the Mary Hill Hotel that month ended the band by nightfall. Kerr and Burchill repurposed the name Simple Minds, drawn from a David Bowie lyric in Gene Genie, per Kerr's later accounts, and rebuilt around McGee, adding bassist Derek Forbes and keyboardist Mick McNeil. Donald, Barnwell and McNeil exited, leaving a quintet that held through 1981. Simple Minds' early sound blended Kraftwerk's electronic precision with Roxy Music's art rock edge, steeped in Glasgow's industrial clang. By 1978, Kerr and Burchill's compositions fused punk's bite with expansive textures, honed in cramped rehearsals. A showcase at Glasgow's Mars Bar secured a deal with Edinburgh's Zoom Records. In spring 1978, they entered Rockfield Studios in Wales, where producer John Leckie captured their debut, Life in a Day, released April 20th, 1979. The album, with its Bowie-inflected title track, peaked at number 30 on the UK Albums Chart for 6 weeks. The single hit number 62 for 2. Critics noticed its glam leanings, but modest sales couldn't save Zoom, which folded soon after. By autumn 1979, Simple Minds signed with Arista Records, who demanded a quick follow-up. Reel-to-reel Cacophony followed at Rockfield with Leckie, and it arrived November 23rd, 1979. Its dissonant sprawl, Forbes bass lines churning like city undercurrents, Burchill's guitars slicing through McNeil's icy synths, echoed Joy Division's starkness. Tracks like Citizen and Premonition leaned experimental, but the album failed to chart. Kerr reflected in a 2022 Guardian interview, "We were kids from the schemes in studios too big for us, chasing something futuristic. Exhaustion hit. McGee endured grueling tours supporting the Tourists and the Skids." Their third album, Empires and Danced, released September 12th, 1980, followed sessions at Rockfield and a Belgian farmhouse. Kerr's European travels, reading Nietzsche on trains from Berlin to Rome, infused its global unease. The single I Travel, released October 1980, missed the UK charts. The album reached number 41. Peter Gabriel, after they opened his August 1980 European tour, praised their intensity in a Melody Maker review, noting McNeil's Oberheim synths mimicked orchestral swells. Arista's poor promotion frustrated the band. By early 1981, unpaid royalties and mismanagement sparked breakup talks. Burchill, in a 2023 Guitar World interview, recalled feeling sidelined by the label. Freed from Arista, they signed with Virgin Records in March 1981. Virgin's support paid off. In May 1981, The American, a brooding transatlantic ode recorded at Farmyard Studios, Buckinghamshire, hit number 59 on the UK charts. Produced by Steve Hillage, ex-Gong guitarist with krautrock roots, it layered Forbes' funk-tinged bass over Burchill's sharp riffs. Simple Minds demoed Love Song during a March 1981 North American tour, testing its hypnotic groove in Toronto venues. Back in England, Hillage recorded it for Sons and Fascination. Kerr's lyrics, penned in a London hotel, captured longing. America's a boyfriend, untouched by flesh of hand. Its verse hook repetition built to a stark climax, reflecting band tensions. McGee, warned by relentless touring, left in September 1981, citing family needs per a 1982 Enemy interview. Love Song arrived August the 15th, 1981 on 7-inch vinyl, backed by an instrumental, This Earth That You Walk Upon. Love Song paired a single-note synth pulse with Kerr's insistent chorus, Love Song. The video, credited to Malik Godfrey Mulcahy, depicted a gritty nightclub. Kerr as a DJ with Birchill, Forbes, McNeil and new drummer Kenny Hislop ex-Skids amid stage brawls under strobes. Filmed in London, it showcased Kerr's charisma, leaping about the DJ booth while singing. Love Song entered the UK singles chart in August 1981, peaking at number 47, their first top 50 hit, and stayed 4 weeks. Internationally, it reached number 18 in Sweden, number 20 in Australia, and number 38 in Canada. Suns and Fascination, released September the 12th, 1981, hit number 11 on the UK albums chart. Hitherge's production, Forbes' etch bass, McNeil's percussive keys, shifted Simple Minds towards sharper hooks, foreshadowing U2's own stadium sound. Kerr, in a 2016 uncut interview, called it a pop breakthrough born from grit. Hislop debuted on the October 1981 tour, driving the Flesh of Heart of Steel bridge to 2,000 fans at Glasgow's Apollo. His funk edge shaped 1982's Promised You a Miracle. By New Gold Dream in 1982, Simple Minds shed punk's husk, but Love Song stood as an awakening concept. Glasgow's raw heart polished into something radiant. For track 5, we're back with one of the major protagonists of the Fleetwood Mac story. All the way back in episode 2, we dug into Fleetwood Mac's Sarah, that sprawling near 9-minute epic from Tusk in 1979, where Stevie Nicks bared her soul about tangled ties with Don Henley and Mick Fleetwood. It was Nicks at her rawest, murmuring over Lindsey Buckingham's delicate guitar, a track that felt like a diary page torn out and set to music. By 1980, Fleetwood Mac's internal fault lines were pushing towards a hiatus, and Nicks was already plotting her solo breakout. Enter Belladonna, her debut album, released July the 27th, 1981. It hit number 1 on the UK Billboard 200 by September the 5th, lingered on the chart for nearly 3 years, and earned quadruple platinum status from the RIAA for over 4 million US sales. The lead single, Stop Draggin' My Heart Around, dropped July the 8th, 1981, a duet with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers that felt fated despite its bumpy origin. Press play now. Nicks had been orbiting Petty since 1978, crashing a Damn the Torpedo session at Shelter Studios in Hollywood. She was his absolutely stone-gone huge fan, Petty recalled, in Paul Zollo's 2005 book Conversations with Tom Petty, describing Nicks in her signature scarves angling for a song. The Heartbreakers were sceptical. She was Fleetwood Mac's mystic queen, trailed by rumours of chaos. But her persistence paid off. By 1980, with Jimmy Iovine producing both Petty's Hard Promises and Belladonna, the stars aligned. It started with Insider, a post-divorce ballad Petty wrote and recorded with Nicks. He loved it too much to let it go, though. Stevie came to me around 78, he told Zollo. It was her mission in life that I should write her a song. Feeling guilty, he offered a Hard Promises outtake, Stop Draggin' My Heart Around, co-written with guitarist Mike Campbell in 1980. Campbell crafted the music, a gritty groove with his Rickenbacker riffs cutting through Benmont Tench's organ hum, while Petty penned the lyrics, a sharp sketch of a push-pull romance. The Heartbreakers recorded it with Donald Duck Dunn on bass, subbing for Ron Blair. Petty sang the original lead, but Iovine, seeing a hit, had Nicks overdub her vocals without recutting the track. I had written the music and Tom had written the words, Campbell told Somfax in 2003. Nicks seized it. Later, in Belladonna's sessions, Iovine pushed for a killer single. And this was it. A near duet with Petty on pre-choruses, their voices sparring. Nicks opens with, Baby, you come knocking on my front door. Same old line you used to use before. I said, yeah, well, what am I supposed to do? I didn't know what I was getting into. The chorus locks in, so you've had a little trouble in town, now you're keeping some demons down. Stop dragging my heart around. Verse 2 digs deeper. It's hard to think about what you've wanted. It's hard to think about what you've lost. This doesn't have to be the big get even. This doesn't have to be anything at all. Petty's bridge bites. I know you really want to tell me goodbye. I know you really want to be your own girl. Into, baby, you could never look me in the eye. Yeah, you buckle with the weight of the word. Petty's lyrics nail his knack for blue-collar heartbreak, but Nick's husky delivery adds a haunted edge, distinct from Fleetwood Mac's polish. The production, Sound City Studio 55, is pure 1981. Campbell's guitar smoulder, Tench's keys simmer, no synths, just rock with a country twang. It peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 6 weeks, blocked by the Pointer Sisters' Slow Hand and Christopher Cross's Arthur's Theme, landing as 1981's 59th biggest hit. Belladonna debuted at number 12 on the Billboard 200, hitting number 1 by September the 5th. In the UK, the single reached only number 50 in October 1981, a quieter splash, but a foothold for Nick's solo career. The video, shot in grainy black and white, showed Nick's prowling a warehouse while Petty and the band jammed, airing on MTV's launch day. Nick's then pushed Petty to produce Belladonna, but it fizzled. We gave it a try, but we both agreed it wasn't working, Tench said in a 2021 American Songwriter piece. Iovine took over with session aces Waddy Wachtel, Roy Bittan and Russ Kunkel. Nick's demoed 16 tracks, cutting 10 for the album. The song was Nick's solo flag planting, proving she could thrive without Buckingham or McVie. They reprised it live, Petty and Nick's at his 2017 Music Airs tribute, her with Harry Styles at the 2019 Rock Hall induction. Weird Al parodied it as Stop Dragging My Car Around in 1983. Buckingham, per Carol Ann Harris's 2005 memoir Storms, quipped it was Stop Dragging My Career Around, a jab at Mac tensions. Belladonna's other singles, Leather and Lace, Edge of 17 and After the Glitter Fades, all of which we'll hear on this pod, sustained her run. But this Petty Nick spark, raw and unyielding, remains its beginning. In the dim glow of a San Francisco club in 1969, two sisters from Oakland stepped onto a stage lined with cigarette smoke and half-empty glasses, their voice cutting through the haze like a shared secret. June and Bonnie Pointer, the youngest and third born of 6 siblings raised in a strict Christian household, calling themselves Pointers. They sang covers of Aretha Franklin and Bessie Smith, the only secular sounds that had slipped past their preacher father Elton's prohibitions on radio and television. Within months, their sister Anita, then a 21-year-old legal secretary, quit her job to join them, trading typewriter keys for microphones. By late 1972, the eldest, Ruth, a key punch operator with 2 children, completed the quartet, rounding out harmonies that would soon echo from jukeboxes to the Grand Ole Opry. Fast forward to 1981, and they released Slow Hand, a song which would kick off quite a remarkable decade for the Pointer Sisters. This is track 6. The Pointer Sisters' path to Slow Hand wound through a decade of reinvention, each album a waypoint in a career that defied the era's rigid genre lines. Their self-titled debut arrived in January 1973 on Blue Thumb Records, a funky slab of soul jazz produced by David Rubinson, who had managed them since Bill Graham spotted them backing Elvin Bishop. Anita took lead on the Alan Toussaint cover Yes We Can, its message of unity climbing to number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 12 on the R&B chart. The Willie Dixon blues standard Wang Dang Doodle followed. Live shows built their buzz, a residency at the Troubadour in Los Angeles, opening for the Doobie Brothers, even a 1974 PBS documentary that captured their thrift store glamour. Feather boas, platform shoes, mismatched prints scavenged from Oakland's cast-offs. That spring, Fairy Tale, a wistful country tune co-written by Anita and Bonnie, marked their first genre leap. Produced by Jeffrey Bowen, who Bonnie would marry the next year, it peaked at number 13 on the Hot 100 and number 37 on the country chart, earning a 1975 Grammy for Best Country Vocal Performance by a Duo or Group, the first for any black female act. The sisters performed it at the Grand Ole Opry in 1974, a milestone that drew stares and applause in equal measure. Ruth later recalled the audience's initial silence giving way to cheers, as if the room had exhaled a long-held breath. That's Aplenty followed in August 1974, a live album from the Berkeley Community Theatre, blending bebop scat on Dizzy Gillespie's Salt Peanuts with a raucous chain of fools. Steppin', released in 1975, leaned into R&B with covers like What You Gonna Do About It, but sales lagged behind their earlier efforts. The group's wardrobe, vintage Andrews Sisters frocks and flapper hats, drew cheers but also whispers of novelty. Their parents, once wary of the devil's work in nightclubs, softened only after seeing the stability their daughter's work provided. Bonnie, restless, left in 1977 for a Motown solo deal, scoring a disco remake of Heaven Must Have Sent You that hit number 11 in the R&B charts. June took a hiatus amid personal struggles, leaving Anita and Ruth to fill dates with understudies. The sisters regrouped as a trio for Having a Party in 1977, a low-key affair of barroom standards that sold modestly. Then came the pivot, a 1978 deal with Richard Perry's Planet Records, a custom label under Elektra. Perry, who had helmed hits for Barbra Streisand and Carly Simon, saw in them a vessel for polished pop. Energy, their Planet debut, arrived that October with a cover of Bruce Springsteen's Fire, Anita's lead turning raw rock into smouldering R&B. It vaulted to number 2 on the Hot 100 and number 1 on the dance chart, selling over 1 million copies and earning a Grammy nomination. June rejoined for Priority in 1979, a rock-leaning set produced by Perry that included nods to Fleetwood Mac and Steely Dan, though it peaked at number 52 on the Billboard 200. Special Things in 1980 refined the formula. Disco's edges softened into ballads with He's So Shy, June on lead. By then, the Pointer Sisters had logged backup vocals for artists from Boz Scaggs to Sylvester, appeared in the 1976 film Car Wash, singing You Gotta Believe with Rose Royce, and hosted their own 1977 TV special. Their sound had evolved from the communal funk of Yes We Can to something intimate, voices layering like silk over steel drums and synths. This brings us to Slow Hand, the lead single from Black and White, released on May the 23rd, 1981. Penned by Michael Clarke and John Bettis of Carpenter's renown, it wasn't tailored for the sisters. Bettis later admitted that they were the furthest act from our minds, yet Perry insisted it would recapitulate and expand on the intimacy of Fire. And he was right. Anita's vocal anchors the track, clear, direct, a contralto that coils around lines like, I'm tired of fast moves, I've got a slow groove on my mind. The arrangement nods to countrypolitan, twanging guitar licks, a metronomic drum machine, faint steel guitar, echoing fairy tale while tipping into adult contemporary. Recorded at Studio 55 in Los Angeles, it clocks in at 3 minutes and 52, with Anita's sisters providing the lush chorus stacks that made their live shows electric. The song entered the Billboard Hot 100 at number 74 in July, surging to number 2 by August, held off the top spot for 3 weeks by Diana Ross and Lionel Richie's Endless Love, a song we'll hear soon. It spent 24 weeks on the Hot 100, hit number 7 on the R&B chart and earned gold certification in September for 500,000 sales. Black and White, the album, followed in August, peaking at number 16 on the Billboard 200 and going gold. Overseas, Slow Hand cracked the UK singles chart on August the 30th, 1981 at number 38, climbing to number 9 by September the 20th and logging 10 weeks total. It appeared in the 1981 film Taps and later 1982's Partners, a cop comedy with Ryan O'Neal. Anita's delivery turns the lyrics into a quiet manifesto. In the first verse, as the midnight moon was drifting through the lazy sway of the trees, I saw the look in your eyes looking into mine, seeing what you wanted to see. Darling, don't say a word, 'cause I already heard what your body's saying to mine. I'm tired of fast moves, I've got a slow groove on my mind. The chorus builds, I want a man with a slow hand. I want a lover with an easy touch. I want somebody who will spend some time, not come and go in a heated rush. I want somebody who will understand. When it comes to love, I want a slow hand. Ruth Pointer, reflecting on its appeal decades later, noted fans, especially women, thanked them for the nudge. There were so many frustrated females. Hey, hey, male lovers, need to slow down. The message was subtle, just enough to give men a little tip. Conway Twitty's 1982 cover, titled Slow Hands, with adjusted pronouns, topped the country chart for 2 weeks, proving the song's crossover bones. By 1981, the Pointer Sisters had sold millions, but Slow Hand sealed their shift from cult favourites to radio staples. It arrived amid a year of boundary blurs, Kenny Rogers' Soulful Lady, Kim Carnes' raspy Betty Davis eyes. For the sisters, it was culmination. A slow groove etched from gospel roots, jazz dives, country stages and disco floors. Anita, ever the anchor, sang it with the patience of someone who had waited tables, backed stars, and harmonised through family fractures. It would set them up for a slew of hits in the 80s, including one of the most memorable, Jump for My Love. But we're not there yet. We finish today back with the kings of musical complexity, Genesis. We last chewed on Genesis' Turn It On Again from 1980, all the way back in episode 7.5, a dad rock pop-leaning banger that showed these prog rock oddballs streamlining their sound. Now it's 1981 and Genesis hits us with Abacab, the title track from their 10th album. This song's a curveball, less a bridge from their past than a wild swerve into something raw, funky and unapologetically catchy. Let's dive in. This is track 7, our final track today. By 81, Genesis is a trio. Phil Collins, Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford. Peter Gabriel split in 75 after The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, and Steve Hackett bailed in 77 post Wind and Wuthering. The album Abacab, released September the 18th, 1981 in the UK, was recorded at The Farm, their new studio in Surrey. They wanted a grittier sound, and as Tony Banks said in a 1997 DVD interview, Genesis Turning It On Again, we were tired of overthinking everything. We just let it flow. Abacab, the song captures that. A loose, almost improvised vibe built on a Roland TR-808, Banks' squiggly synths, and Collins' gated snare, a sound he perfected with engineer Hugh Padgham. The track doesn't follow a tidy verse-chorus setup, it's more like a series of sonic moods. Rutherford's guitar chugs, Collins' drums snap, and the synths feel like they're taunting you to move. The lyrics are cryptic. Look up on the wall, there on the floor. Under the pillow, behind the door, there's a crack in the mirror. Somewhere there's a crack in the mirror. No clear story, just fragmented images, maybe hinting at broken connections or vague unease. Banks, in a 2007 classic rock interview, said, "We didn't overanalyze the words, they just fit the groove." Chart-wise, Abacab hit number 9 in the UK. Released in August 1981, it matched the pop appeal of Turn It On Again, which hit number 8, but didn't quite surpass it. In the US, it climbed to number 26 on the Billboard Hot 100, showing Genesis's growing stateside pull. The single was trimmed from the album 6 minutes to 4, sharpening its radio punch. Now, Phil Collins' solo career. His debut Face Value dropped February the 9th, 1981, Within the Air Tonight, soaring to number 2 in the UK. This creates a split-screen life, Collins pouring his divorce-fueled heart into solo tracks, all of which we've heard on this pod so far, while still jamming with Genesis. In a 1986 Spin interview, he said, "Genesis is a band, not my backing group. It's a democracy, sometimes a pain in the arse." His solo work leaned personal, but Genesis's process was collaborative, often born from long studio jams. Banks noted in Classic Rock 2007, "We'd play for days and songs like Abacab just emerged." The gated reverb from Face Value seeps into Abacab's crisp production, but Collins kept the two worlds distinct. His solo success gave him confidence to nudge Genesis towards pop, yet Banks and Rutherford's input kept it experimental. The title Abacab is from the song's original jam structure, sections labelled ABC. Banks explained in the 1997 DVD, "We rearranged it, but the name stuck for fun." It's a snapshot of a band evolving, ditching prog's baggage while keeping its daring spirit. Colin's solo rise didn't fracture Genesis, it pushed them further to take risks. So that's the first half of Playlist 28 done and dusted. But don't forget that on October the 2nd, you also get a special episode this week as we talk to Justin Lewis about his brilliant new book, Into the Groove, the 1980s, the ultimate decade in music history. And then next week, we hit the back six of episode 28 and we have a school disco classic from Ottawan, one of the sneaky best songs from the synth pop era from OMD, possibly the last great Rolling Stones and Windows 95 advertising song. And then get your roller skates ready as we head to Milton Keynes with Cliff Richard. It's a corker. Anyway, hope you have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time on I Completed 80s Music. Take care.